Welcome to Out in It, where we discuss our hunting and fishing adventures, our successes, and our failures.
All right, we're hopping in, man. Hey guys, I got Kanon Harmon with me in today. He fishes now for Arkansas Tech University. Super excited to have him on. How are you doing today, brother?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem. So, guys, we're gonna roll through a lot of topics today. We're gonna kind of see where he got to start. He's gonna give us some tips. He's gonna tell us about a pretty exciting weekend he had a couple of weekends ago, and we're gonna discuss a few other things. I mean, I'm sure things are just gonna pop up. But first thing I wanted to ask you, kind of an icebreaker question. If it was a life or death situation, somebody said if you can recite all the words to a song. Or if you recite all of them, you live. What song are we picking?
Oh, gosh. Dude, that is a good question. I'd probably die.
Dude, I was thinking about it because I knew I was going to ask you this on the way here, and getting set up, and I was like, is there a song? Because I feel like every time I sing a song, even a song I've known for a long time, I still mess up the lyrics.
Maybe I'll Fly Away by Alan Jackson.
The hymn. There you go. Nothing wrong with that. Anyhow, so man, from the sounds that you've been fishing for a while, what year are you in college now?
I'm a senior.
Senior.
I went to Pulaski Tech for 2 years, and then I transferred to Arkansas Tech, and I've been on their fishing team for 2 years now.
Cool. So, how old are you?
I'm 21.
21. Cool. So, how long would you say that you've been fishing?
Oh, my whole life, dude. Fishing tournaments, probably since I was 13. I remember begging my dad to take me out to a tournament. He had a fireman's tournament. He's a firefighter. He had a little fireman's tournament on Lake Washita, and I begged him to let me fish it. Then after that tournament, it all started.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I know that for me personally, I'm just kind of getting into more of the tournament scene. I fished my whole life, but as far as like bass fishing, it's been more of the past 10 years for me.
Right.
How did you transition from high school to Arkansas Tech?
Man, it was a little humbling. I ain't gonna lie. Like, a lot of the guys that I fished back home were really good, but the guys in college are just another level.
Right.
When you're traveling the country fishing against some of the best guys out there, I mean, these guys are stout, and information is getting thrown all over the place too. So I mean, you're working against all odds, really. But it was a good transition. It took me a little bit to start doing well in college, but once you get confidence, things go good. I'll just say it that way.
Right. So, I'm not asking you to do this to brag on yourself or anything, but what are some of the accomplishments that you've had up to this point?
We just got back from the 2024 National Championship on Toho. We qualified last year at Sam Rayburn, and we caught all those fish just forward-facing sonar, doing something a little bit different than what most guys were doing. We were out in the middle of the lake out there, targeting them with the swim bait. But that was a 5th place finish on Sam Rayburn, though, and that you had to get like top 30, I think, to qualify for the national championship. But we ended up going to Toho a few weeks ago and got back. We didn't really have the best tournament. We had a prop year come off on day one of the championship, and we just had to stop fishing and had a buddy take us in to the weigh-in.
Man, well, I mean, just the experience of being able to go, I'm sure, was just awesome. And to see all the anglers and just to know that, how many boats were there at the national championship there?
I think there was 150. There was a lot less this year.
Yeah.
So there wasn't very many. Normally there's like a 200 to 250. There's usually a lot, but there's only 138, I think, that fished it.
Just to know that you were, to be recognized as one of the top, collegiate fishermen in the country is probably pretty awesome.
It was cool, man. You go there and you see guys like Tucker Smith, Drew Gill. I mean, you're fishing against some of the best college guys, and some of those guys are competing on, pro circuits now.
Right. Drew Gill obviously just made the top 10 this weekend in MLF, and there was a point there where it looked like he had an opportunity to win. Kind of the middle of the second period there.
Dude's a big hammer for sure, and there's a lot of those college guys they're just not. They probably don't have the money to go out and do it.
Right. So, like I said, you transitioned to Arkansas Tech. So how is the process there of like getting recruited? I guess I played college baseball, so I'm certain that is probably totally different as far as fishing goes.
It is, but it isn't in the same aspect. So, like these bigger schools, like your Bethel and your Adrian College and all those things they go out nationally and recruit, and they have a lot to offer because they pay the kids and stuff. But Arkansas Tech, we really focus on local guys. And we do draw guys out of state sometimes, but we just try to draw local guys because there's a lot of hammers in Arkansas. They go through the high school trails. They'll see guys that are doing good in high school trails. We'll contact them, tell them about the school, tell them about the campus and whatnot. But it's a lot different than baseball. The money is not as much as it is in baseball for sure.
Right. So, well, man, it's awesome just to be able to, like for me, like I played baseball for 1 year, but just to know like that I had the opportunity to do something like that. And then obviously for you to have the accomplishments that you have just to be able to do that, especially when you're a local kid, state of Arkansas, go to Russellville and get to go from there to compete in a national championship. So it sounds like Lake Washita. Was that your home lake? I mean, is that where you grew up fishing, or?
Yeah, I grew up on Lake Washita. I got a lake house up there, upriver, and that's where I grew up fishing. That's where I learned to fish, was up there. And I learned muddy water and shallow water up the rivers when I was younger because that's as far as I could really go, as far as my parents would take me.
Yeah.
But as I got older, there's a lot more lake, and learned a bunch about clear water fishing, and so I kind of got the whole mix as a kid.
Right. Well, and the cool thing about the state of Arkansas is I feel like that it's kind of diverse as far as like you fish up north in the Ozarks. You can go fish like Bull Shoals, North Fork, and lakes like that, and you can get in those big clear water lakes. And I don't know how Washita sets up, but I'm assuming it's probably very similar. And then you get down into southeastern Arkansas and get down into some of those fisheries, and I'm sure you get more into, like you're saying, that muddy water and more, it's a whole different fishery.
Yes. Arkansas's got the best when it comes to versatility, I think. Your Alabama guys, they got their ledge fishing and whatnot. And that's only really what we're not probably the most good at, is that kind of style of fishing. When it comes to everything else, though, Arkansas guys are going to show up, no doubt.
Right. So, what was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? I actually saw your video on TikTok.
Yeah.
And you were able to catch an 11-pounder. Was that your PB?
That was by far my PB. My biggest bass before that was like a 7 on a Washita.
Yeah. So, kind of let us in on that day. Like you knew you were going fishing that day. You wake up that morning. Did y'all know when you went out to the lake that's what y'all were doing that day?
We knew what we were going to go do, but we did not know we were going to catch one that big. So I went with both my buddies, Blake Humphrey and Carson Humphrey, and we go fishing a lot. And I come down from Russellville that Friday night, and we're like, let's go fish Washita. And I was like, y'all, they're both fishing open as a co-angler. It's a pretty cool story. But they're both fishing as co-angler as in the open at Washita. And I was like, we need to check the off limits, make sure that it's not off limits this weekend. And they're like, ooh, yeah, dude, we need to make sure, check it. And in that Saturday, it was off limits. So we were like, well, dang, let's just go to Degray. I hadn't been to Degray since probably since fall or so. It's probably early fall, so I hadn't been there for a while. We
Yeah.
get out there and start live scoping, fishing shallow, doing both, throwing a trap around, and the shallow bite wasn't just all that good, and so we started going out there and scoping a little bit with the little finesse swim bait, and I actually brought it. Some motivated Exodus swimmers, what we were throwing on the back of a little jig head, but
Yeah.
we caught probably 30 to 40 fish. We were having freaking a blast, and then all of a sudden I hook one, and we see it on the live scope. I told my buddy Blake he wasn't really catching a whole lot because three people trying to look at live scope don't really work too well.
Yeah.
I told my buddy Blake, I was like, throw up there, dude, because there's a giant right there. And he doesn't cast, so I'm like, I'm going to cast. I pitch out there, and I'll let it sink. And all of a sudden, it starts dropping on its nose. And I'm like, oh, here we go. And it starts coming up. When I see its tail kicking, I'm like, that's a giant. I start working away from her. And my rod tip just gets heavy. And I set the hook into her, and it was just super heavy. And I was like, I don't know what this is. I was like, we were calm at first, nothing's going. It wasn't crazy. We're like, it might be a hybrid or a striper. I was like, man, it wasn't really running though. Like hybrids when you hook into them or stripers, they'll just immediately take off.
Right.
He was fighting me hard, but it's like they're like tanks. If I can describe what an 11-pounder is like, it's like a tank. They're huge, and they just go at their own pace, and you're not going to move them. Like they're going to go right too. So I was letting them drag out. I caught on a spinning rod. I was letting drag out, and I told my buddies, I was like, she's coming up to the surface. I'm like, we're about to see her, whatever it is. And then I see it flash, and it's got these big diamonds, and it's a giant flash of a bass. I'm like, that's a 10-pounder. I'm like, get the net. My buddy's like, we don't have a net, dude. And they're all panicking, going around the boat, trying to grab it. And I get it back up, and it comes by the boat and just wallers, and I thought it was going to come off, and I'm just holding it tight, like, grab her. He gets down there and grabs it, and he's holding it in the bottom of the boat, and he takes it off the hook, and he's just holding the fish, looking at it like in shock. And I'm like, get that fish in the boat, dude. Like, what are you doing? And he gets it in the boat, and we're freaking out. I'm like, that's my 10-pounder. That's my 10-pounder. It was awesome. It was an awesome moment because I got to share that moment with my buddies, and I fished with them for years, dude.
Right.
And we spent countless hours together, and to be able to do something like that with your buddies is insane.
Man, that's cool. I can't imagine like the process of that. Just like, I feel like it was, a 6-pound bass on this year, and just I didn't get it in the boat, and just not getting that in the boat, I felt like, sick to my stomach. But I can't imagine the emotions of like once it sets in what you just did, it's like one of those things where you may never catch a fish that big again ever for the rest of your life,
I know. It's crazy, dude. And when it come up, I was freaking out because I was like, just please grab it. I mean, I was literally like, please, dude, grab it. Like, I was almost emotional just because it was such a big fish, and I've worked so hard to catch a fish that big. I've fished for countless hours. I never caught anything over 7, and all my buddies have caught one over 7. So I was like, when's my turn? You know what I mean?
Man, I've like I said, I've hardly gotten into like just really seriously fishing lakes. I got a real small creek behind the house, so we go down there and fish, and there's some largemouth in it, but like I haven't had a lot of opportunities at big fish like that. So I can't imagine what it's like. Obviously, with the amount of time you fished, like, so you said seriously, like you've been fishing since you were 13, like religiously.
I've been fishing since I was like 3. As young as I could hold a rod, my parents had a rod in my hand, but they were crappie fishermen, and they bass fish just for fun. But nobody in my family tournament fished, and I had to beg my dad to just get me into it, and
Right.
I was dang hooked.
So, what was your setup like as far on that bass, the rod that you used to catch that? What line were you running, and do you care to share any of that?
Yeah, my dang rod's in the truck. I wish I'd grabbed it, but it's 6'11". It's a 6'11" F5 rod, and it's a medium heavy. I think it's got got a really good load action. I've caught several big fish on it. One of my biggest from Sam Raven was a 6.5, and I caught it on the same rod, and there caught several big fish on it. And it's held up really well for a spinner rod. And I had it paired with 10-pound test and throwing a half-ounce jig head on that swim bait, and just watch her come up and eat it. You have to throw a really accurate cast. It's not as easy as it seems. Those fish are somewhat pretty deep, 35 foot or so, and they're moving. So you have to like lead them. I mean, you know how like sports work. You know, you played baseball. I've explained it to people. It's like a quarterback. You can't just throw at your receiver. You have to throw, to the right. If he's moving to the right, you have to lead him. The same thing with bass fishing. I mean, whenever that fish is moving underwater, you can't just throw where it shows that he's at, because by the time your bait gets down there, he's going to be gone.
Right. So how deep? You said the fish was at about 35 feet. How deep were y'all fishing there? Do you know about how deep y'all were set up at?
We were sitting at 60, and she was up there at 35.
Wow. Man, so I'm assuming the half-ounce jig was just to be able to get it down there quick enough to put it on top over there. Man, that I can't imagine. That's just awesome to be able to do that. So you go ahead.
Then my buddy, I'm like, that's a fish of a lifetime. Then my buddy Jimmy, the next weekend, catches his client caught a 12.66, I think.
Doing the same thing, I'm certain.
Yeah, pretty much. Just it was a lot shallower. He probably have some videos come out, but it was a lot shallower than what I caught mine. But it was pretty much the same bait, just tweaked it a little bit differently.
Right. Well, we've had a couple of warm weeks here where it's been, mid 60s and stuff like that. So I'm sure everything's probably changed a little bit from when y'all went. Those
fish moved up. When me and him went out there, and they were not deep. That super cold front we had, that we had 2 weeks of just straight, under 32 degrees. Those fish got pretty deep, but they're definitely, the shad and the bass have come up in water column.
Right. So take me through, we don't have to give a name, Lake, but take me through, like, you're going to, it's Tuesday. You find out you're going, which you probably get your tournament schedule way ahead of time, but you're going to whatever lake. What's the first thing you're doing right now before you've had a practice round or anything like that?
Well, it all depends on the time of the year. So say if it's like March, let's just give it an example. If it's March and we're going to a semi-clear lake, but say we're going to Table Rock and it's March, which we're going to go up there in April, early April, for a college tournament. But say we're going to Table Rock, I'm probably going to try to find some live scoping fish and some fish that are somewhat deep, just in case if there's a cold front or something and they get pushed out, then I got something to fall back on. But I'm also going to go upriver and find some stained water and probably do some flipping and just find a shallow bite, something that they find a bite that they're going to move to. Because this time of year, dude, fish are moving. They're wanting to be up shallow. So I'm going to go up the rivers a little bit, stained water. If I have 2 days of practice, I'll spend 1 day down lake in the main lake, and then 1 day up a river, and just figure out what I want to do. If it's fishing shallow or fishing deep, I really prefer both. I mean, I really don't mind. Just whichever way they want to bite the best is the way that I want to fish. But I don't really try to get too keyed in on a certain particular bite. But I want to get clues to like how I can catch bigger quality fish. But I'm definitely going to try to put in both just in case if I need to fall back on either one.
So do y'all ever like, before the round, do you have the same partner every tournament?
Yeah, he actually graduated in December. So I'm going to have a new partner for this next college tournament. But yeah, normally you have the same partner and you fish with the same guy all year.
So do y'all sit down and do y'all, like, do you get on any like topographical maps? Like, the week of, you probably got a pretty good idea of what the weather's going to look like and probably kind of see what the weather. So can you kind of say, okay, well, we know what the weather's looking like. Other than the water temp, you probably can't get, and you may be able to get the water temp if you go, because I know right now I can go look at the fishing report from Norfolk Lake and find where a guy's put what the water temperature's been. So you can kind of get an idea. So then you take that information and look at a topographical map and try to find areas that you think that they're going to be.
Yeah. So I've never been an information guy. I've had it kick me in the butt so many times of, dock talk and people telling you to go do this, do that. I've always done the best when I found my own deal, and just had confidence, because confidence is the biggest thing. When you're doing somebody else's deal, you're not going to have full confidence in yourself, because you're like, well, he did this, so I got to try to do this.
Right.
But so I'll look at Google Earth a lot. Like, I study Google Earth a lot. Like, I'll get on there, drain the lake down. If you have it on a laptop, you can take it back in time to where the water was low. And I'll look for, logs, stumps, rocks, anything that looks, that stands out. And I'll do that a lot before the tournament. If it's a bigger tournament, I do a lot of studying. I look at navionics. I look at, topographic maps. Look to where there's, channels, bends, stuff like that fish are going to set up on. But that's pretty much it. And when I get there, I try to be open-minded and not get too keyed in on, like, I want to go do this, like I want to go do this I just have ideas in my head to kind of what I want to do, but I'm not like, I'm going to go catch them like this.
Right. So what would your advice be to, like, a club angler, for example, that I'm going to be fishing in a club this year, somebody who doesn't get that opportunity to go fish a practice round often, that's going to pull up on Saturday after working all week and try, they've basically got 8 hours to figure it out and put, catch a limit and have a decent bag.
So to a guy that doesn't get any practice, is stay to your strengths. I mean, don't go out there and try something you've never done of tournament day. If you have a day of practice, absolutely try to do it and to get better. But if you're going out there, doing a little club tournament, you don't have no days of practice, just go do what you do best. If that's throwing a crankbait on rocks or a jerk bait or whatever, I mean, just stick to your strengths and what you're confident in.
Sweet. Yeah, I like that. So that's cool. I'm trying to think of anything else, any other questions I have. We obviously talked about the Major League Fishing. What do you think about them switching back to the every fish counts format?
Man, I kind of like it, to be honest. Like, to be completely honest with you, because I think there needs to be something different. We have Bassmaster. They've always been 5 fish for forever. And I think for other viewers, it's nice to see something different. If you're going to go watch something, you don't want to watch something that's exactly the same thing.
Right.
Really, you just be watching it for anglers. What you want to watch your favorite guy or whatever. But I like it. It just changes the whole style of fishing. It makes it to where if you're not live scoping now, you're going to get beat. There's just no really chance. And you've seen that on Toledo. And I guess it depends on what lakes you go to, but it really doesn't, because the Open was dominated on live scope too. You didn't really see a whole lot of it, but because Scott Martin won, but he was live scoping fish on beds, and there's a lot of guys in the canals like Tucker Smith and a few other guys that were just live scoping fish in the canals.
Right.
It's getting to the point where guys that are fishing with live scope are around the majority of fish, so they're going to catch more than you are up shallow.
And I even saw now during the Major League Fishing event where, and I can't remember, I think maybe it was called the Sniper Pro or something like that, where they can troll and use that live scope while they're trolling with their hand and get the same thing. You can see if they're fish they were talking about up under docks or wherever they're trolling. They don't have to be sitting at the front of the boat on the trolling motor to see where these bass are at.
Right.
And just to see how that's advancing, and you get to see it more than I have, but you have the fishing community is really split on it. It's, half the community is like, well, of course anybody can catch them with live scope, but just like we were talking about earlier with you catching that suspended bass, it's like, just because you could see the fish doesn't mean that you're going to set everything up correctly. Like you still have to do things the right way.
Oh yeah, it's not as easy as people think. I mean, people think, oh, you're seeing that fish, you're gonna throw out there and catch them. That fish is swimming, and it's pretty dark down there where those fish are at. I mean, once you get below 20, it gets pretty dark for the most part. And those fish, you throw 2 foot to the right, 2 foot to the left, they won't even see your bait. I mean, you got to be like dropping on their head right in front of them. And that's hard to do when they're moving. I mean,
Right.
there's reasons quarterbacks are the best, and it's because some of them have more skill of of not casting, of throwing the football and knowing spot placement, and that's the same thing with fishing. I mean, that's what
Right.
separates some of these guys like Drew Gill and Jacob Wheeler from the rest is their casting ability is insane, and they know their efficiency. I mean, they're really quick. If you watch them weigh a fish in, they're not taking their time. Like, look at this fish. They're weighing it, get on the scales, hop back up there, next fish, let's go. I mean, that's why you see them stack up the weight so much. And Dustin Connell did the same thing. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
absolutely. Absolutely. So, what's your schedule look like? When's your next tournament?
So Trader Bill's has a team trail series that they do in Arkansas, and it's a big team trail, and they pay like $15,000 to the top finisher. That's gonna be my first one, and it's coming up pretty quick. It's February 17th, on Lake Hamilton, and they have you're talking about the club tournaments. They have a week off limits, so you get to go fish that weekend before, but you show up Derby Day, and you got to go fish against some of the best in Arkansas.
Yeah. So is that part of your college fishing season, or is that?
That's just a local thing. But my first college tournament, and probably my last one, unless I qualify for another championship, will be April 5th, I think, on Lake Table Rock.
Okay. And so do you get sponsors through the college or some of these bigger tournaments just something you're kind of going off and doing on your own, or?
So we fundraise at Arkansas Tech. That's what we do. We do get sponsorships. The school does, and it gets put into an account, and then we go fish, and we basically get reimbursed for our money, traveling expenses, and stuff like that. But sponsorships, the school will go out there. We'll all try to get sponsorships. We try to get a title sponsorship. Horizon Track and Marine is our title sponsorship this year, and then we just have some other sponsors that will help us out and pay for some expenses.
So do y'all have any like partnerships with any local bait makers or anything like that?
Yeah, we have a couple.
Cool. That's awesome. I know I was supposed to get him on this weekend, and it just kind of scheduling conflict. But I'm going to get the guy over at Buzzin' Baits on, which I'm sure you've seen him on.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
Seen some of his videos on TikTok and that. But man, if there's anything else, any advice you have, or any just words of encouragement you have for any fishermen who are trying to really get into more of the competitive scene, or just learning, the floor is yours.
So my advice to kids going into college fishing, and if you don't have a whole lot of money like I don't, and you can't pay for information and stuff like what people do nowadays, is just work your dang tail off and try to get confident in every bait possible. That a way that you'll be fully versatile when you come into college, because you'll need to be, and try to get live scope. I know that I hate to say that, because I used to not be a live scope guy. I used to be just a straight shallow guy, but I mean, these guys are straight up dominating with live scope, and it's just going to get worse. So try to work your way to get one. That's what I did. It took me a few years to buy one, but I saved my money up and got one, and I ended up winning my money back in 2 weeks with it was insane. But just try to get fully versatile with everything. You need to be good shallow too, and you need to be good with offshore, and just try to be versatile and just work your dang tail off, dude. That's what it takes. It's just a lot of hard work, because
cool, man. Well,
you're going to get
man, brother.
guys. You're going to get some really good guys all over the country, and these lakes, or unless you went there in high school for tournaments, there's a bunch of lakes out there that are huge, and you have to break down super quick. And it's going to take a lot of knowledge to break them down that quick against those guys. But you can do it for sure.
Well, man, I appreciate you. It's been awesome. I know it hasn't been a really long time, but I feel like we've covered, quite a few topics. I appreciate you taking the time out. I know with being a college student and all that, you probably are pretty booked up, but I really just appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm probably going to have to get on some homework when I get off here.
All right, Kanon. Well, hey, I appreciate you, brother. Good luck with your upcoming tournament, man. And I really appreciate your time.
I appreciate you, man.
All right. Take it easy, brother.